In classic fashion for a Hideo Kojima game, Death Stranding is a title that's still shrouded in mystery and speculation. If someone asked me right now why they should look forward to Death Stranding, I'd honestly have a very hard time explaining given what little we know. What I do know is that I'm intrigued by the game's visuals and themes, and Kojima's track record as a game designer speaks for itself. His games and their tendency to be somewhat bizarre may not be everyone's cup of tea, but there is no denying the level of polish and care that Kojima brings to his creative endeavors. Now, as far as Death Stranding goes, we were shown a bit of gameplay in the E3 2018 trailer. The footage is hardly enough to determine the full extent of the title's gameplay, but it showcases a glimpse of a ravaged open world through which Sam Porter Bridges will navigate environmental obstacles on. Looking at this, many people immediately took to assuming that this is all there is to Death Stranding's gameplay, that it will end up being a beautiful AAA walking simulator. But if you're familiar with Kojima's work, then you should be well aware by now that with him, nothing is ever what it seems. There is no doubt in my mind that what we saw in the E3 2018 trailer was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the kind of gameplay we'll be experiencing with this title. Just to drive this point further, I'd like to discuss a tweet posted by recently hired Head of Marketing and Communications of Kojima Productions, Aki Saito. But before that, a little bit of context. If you watched my last video, you may recall that Norman Reedus discussed during a podcast that he would soon be heading over to New York City to record some of the few sessions he has left until he's done with this project.
But I think I have 3 more sessions here in New York starting next week.
Lo and behold, it wasn't long after that Kojima began posting pictures of himself in New York City, suggesting that he would soon be meeting up with Norman to do some recording for the game, which we can now confirm judging by these photos of himself and Norman that Kojima's been tweeting. From the looks of it, they primarily seem to be focusing on doing some facial capture, possibly suggesting they're mainly redoing lines or something. Along the way, Kojima also met up with none other than Aki Saito, who seems to have been hired in New York City. It's worth noting that Aki Saito has worked with Kojima in the past, acting as a translator and helping host Kojima shows and podcasts during the good old Metal Gear days, so the two have known each other for quite some time. Anyway, after a day of fooling around, 2 days later on December 12th, Aki Saito finally posted the following tweet, suggesting he's finally gotten a glimpse of the game, about which he had this to say. Good morning, my 3rd day joining Kojima Productions, and the past 2 days is like, oh my god, the game is nothing I thought it was. It's probably safe to say that prior to his employment, he knew as much about the game as the rest of us did, having only gleaned it through the myriad cryptic trailers that have released so far, including the E3 2018 one that showed a bit of gameplay. He probably formulated his own ideas regarding what the game will be like based on those few glimpses. But now that he's delved into the belly of the beast, it would seem as though he's seen the game in a way that most of the rest of the world hasn't. As the new head of marketing and communications, Kojima has likely filled him in on the basics of the kind of game Death Stranding will be, so that Aki Saito will be able to fulfill his new job. And according to his recent tweet, it would seem as though whatever Aki Saito was shown of the game went beyond what he initially expected. So I say again to those who are under the impression that we have seen the full extent of Death Stranding's gameplay from the E3 2018 trailer, or that this game will end up being some kind of walking simulator. Wait until Kojima and Sony finally decide to do a full gameplay blowout before resorting to final judgment. While I understand the trepidation surrounding a game that was announced 2.5 years ago, about which the general audience seems to be no closer to understanding, I guarantee you that as the game nears launch and as marketing starts to kick up a few notches, we'll be seeing a lot more of the game in action, and that we'll have a clearer understanding of it. And I'll bet you that Death Stranding's gameplay goes far deeper than just transporting some packages through a ravaged landscape. The clip we saw of the man in the golden mask by itself should show you that there is going to be some pretty epic and weird shit happening in this game. Moving on, I'd like to direct your attention to a more recent tweet that Aki Saito posted earlier yesterday featuring a picture of himself talking to Norman. Alongside the picture is a message quoting a few things that Norman had to say about the game, stating the following. Short interview with Norman. He says the game is mind-blowing, epic, the future, and incredible. Now, alongside Norman and Aki Saito, another individual Kojima met up with in New York was a man by the name F. Paul Wilson, author of works such as The Keep, Repairman Jack, and Night World. As it turns out, Wilson himself also had a few hints to share about the game in a tweet he posted about his meeting with Kojima, stating the following: "Hideo Kojima is in NYC this week, and we got together for dinner. We discussed his new project, Death Stranding, which I think will be a transformative online experience. The man is a true visionary who blows my mind by calling me sensei." Transformative online experience are the key words here, which goes in line with information Kojima and others have shared about the game in the past. In an interview with IGN, Kojima stated that while online is one aspect of the game that he cannot talk too much about, he did say that he wanted to try something different for online. Let's also not forget that Norman hinted at one point that the game would feature elements of social media, and Mads Mikkelsen let it slip that Death Stranding will be a game that will require global cooperation. Kojima's emphasized in the past that Death Stranding can be played as a single-player game, but the more I hear about the game, the more I get the sense that the game's online component, whatever shape it might take, will be an important tool through which Kojima will be expressing the game's themes and narrative, particularly where forming connections and using the rope rather than the stick is concerned. I don't expect online to be a requirement in this game, but I expect it will enhance the experience drastically, kind of like how Dark Souls can technically be played offline, and players can still have a good time without an internet connection, but at the same time, online gives it an extra layer of depth and intrigue. So yeah, there you have it, folks. It would seem as though there is more to the game than meets the eye, and we're hearing once again that Kojima intends to create an online experience that's unlike anything else out there. It'll be some time before we get more clarity on these fronts, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like the game is as far away from launch as some people might think. As I discussed in my previous video, Norman hinted that he's almost done recording for the game, and when actors are done with their work, that usually tends to signify that a game's development cycle has hit the final stages. Hell, Kojima himself noted in a recent interview with a Japanese news outlet that the game was now in the polishing stages, and he also emphasized during Tokyo Game Show 2018 that despite a few snags, the game was still on schedule, suggesting that the 2019 window Kojima hinted at last year might indeed come to fruition. But while we wait for new footage, for new information, and for a release date, I'd love to hear what your theories are about the kind of gameplay we can expect and the type of online system we can look forward to in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel directly, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out!